Hey there, Tank Guy here. I am with Scott. He used to own a large rental company that weathered the storm through 9/11 and the financial crisis. And currently he's the head of 10X. And today we're going to just be talking about kind of like the environment today and some tactics you can do to possibly redirect costs, become more efficient, help you weather the storm. Hi, Scott.
Good morning.
How you doing today?
Very good.
Good. All right. So this conversation is basically about our environment today. And you wrote an article it was on LinkedIn. And it was a very good article talking about, the things you can be doing right now. So where do we start? What's some advice, or what can you tell everyone?
So let's do a little bit of history relative to what I've been through. Back at 9/11, our company was located in Harrisburg at the time, and the first of the trade towers had been hit, and our people got aware of it through calls to the customer service, and then it became a crisis. And then I remember the next thing was some of my staff coming down, kind of just like, oh, who could imagine what could happen next? Because it hadn't even seen the second tower hit, let alone fall, and everybody's all anxious. And we were loaded in, and trucks on the road to Hershey, to the Hershey complex for work that we were doing there. We were doing typical, wedding season work that we were, in takedowns on that particular day. And it seemed like the whole day just kind of came to a crawl because we didn't know what to do. It's kind of a weird situation. The second one that happened was when 2008 occurred, and the financial meltdown, which rolled into 2009 when we really started to see it. And both of those are incidents that took away substantial amounts of revenue for us during the time periods, each being quite different. In the case of 9/11, it was an instant stop. Every job that was out there canceled. It just didn't seem right to carry on an event, so they canceled it because of it. Much different than what we're dealing right now with coronavirus.
Right.
And in the case of 2009, it was kind of a slow impact where events stopped rebooking annual events. They got smaller. People weren't sure whether they should be entertaining, and each of those represented, different types of things. The coronavirus event is kind of interesting because if you surveyed anybody, as ARA did on Monday, most people had some sign of cancellation. Some didn't have any yet. Some had a few. Some people might have had big ones, but by the end of the week, pretty much everything was being shut down. Everything, relatively speaking. Now, there's companies that are still doing things because they're tied to industrial settings and so on and so forth, but general rule. Now, a lot of my contacts tend to be with the larger companies because that's where my business lies, but I monitor and follow the industry from smallest to largest, and the impact on smaller versus larger company is very different. Having to do a lot with the large companies have some financial momentum, which allows them to weather a situation like this. The smaller companies, they're kind of at that evolution size of the company, and they're going to be at their highest potential for risk in terms of, okay, can we cash flow this thing? That's the challenge I think a lot of your people are faced with that have commented on some of your posts already. Does that sound right?
Yeah. I feel a lot of them might be okay because they got low. They're probably working out of the garage or rented, storage unit or whatever. But yeah, anyone who's renting a place and has employees and events start canceling, it's not going to be good for them. But on a different note, a lot of the smaller people don't do a lot of corporate things.
Right.
So they're not seeing as many cancellations currently. I mean, they're waiting for graduation season and wedding season. So we'll see what happens there. But as of right now, I personally had no weddings or graduations canceled. I've just had a college event cancel.
Right. Good. So and that's kind of leads into how does it impact different people. If you're in a large city, or if you're a larger company serving a corporate world, the impact is going to be different, no question about it, because those events are going to tend to shut down, and probably shut down for a specific period of time that's somewhat timed to what the government's expecting them to do as large gatherings.
Right.
Where small events are concerned, there's a lot of weddings that aren't canceled. Or the people will call and say, we're not sure what we're going to do, so we want to put, we want to try to cancel it or put you on notice. It's hard to tell where people are going to be in their thinking on a wedding that would be 2 months from now. Wedding season for the Northeast and the Northern Territories generally starts to kick in May, so we could be about 60 days into it from here. We read the small gatherings of less than 50 is what's being suggested. Well, weddings aren't really falling under that category, and if you have wedding parties, those people are also they're not regulated. There's more common sense that probably goes into a family gathering than there is to a corporate gathering where you're with people you don't know. So,
Right.
I would say that it's the advantage to the people that are not doing the corporate work right now in terms of the recovery, because a lot of those jobs aren't going to cancel. Now, then the question is, when people call, what do you do with a call? I mean, and honestly, if it's more than 30 days out and somebody wants to cancel, I would consider saying to them, if you're not sure what you're going to do with your event, I'm going to suggest that you don't cancel it, but rather just give yourself some time, because however we proceed from here, it's not, there's no benefit to canceling and having to restart it. Why don't you just, put it on hold and wait and see how this plays out and figure out where we put our effort.
Right.
And I think that's healthier.
Yeah, that's what you told me last night. When people call and they want to cancel 60 days out right now, I'm going to say, currently not accepting cancellations right now because we don't know what's going to happen. And if you do cancel and someone else reserves that equipment, and then you want to have your party, then you can't have your party because you canceled and reserved the stuff for someone else. So
right.
Keep your reservation currently. If within X amount of time of your party you want to cancel, then we'll let you cancel.
Mm-hmm. As to what you do where deposits are concerned, I wouldn't go into that area right now, but I think there's a lot well written out there. If you go to the internet, the sites that we typically follow are there's a lot of discussion that goes on in all of them, and it's worth taking the time to read it to get other ideas and opinions on how to approach it, because there's a lot of good experience out there. There's a lot of bad ideas that you can read and say, I don't think that fits my customer, and you establish what's comfortable for you. So when you do get the call, you've already thought it through.
Right.
That's a key. So
yeah. Well, real quick, I'm gonna say my cancellation policy during all this. Anyone before last Friday when we came up with this gets their money back. They want to cancel, but we'll try to push them to either reschedule or not cancel and cancel later, just to see what happens. And then we've changed our contracts that's saying, even due to COVID-19, 25% deposits non-refundable. And we're asking them to wait 24 hours after they tell us they want to book it to think if they want to, because there could be a possibility it's going to be canceled and the deposit would be lost. So we're not going to take the money when they say, all right, let's book it. We're going to say 24 hours from now, call us back after you thought.
That makes sense.
Because of this. And so then those people going forward, we've laid out the risk for them and they understand and they still want to put their money down. Anyone before that, they didn't know the risk, obviously. So they're going to be getting their money back if they want it. But again, try to reschedule or say we'll cancel you later closer to your event. Your event still might happen.
Sure. Yep, that makes sense.
Cool.
So, the other thing is, as you're looking at this, there's two ways to make a profit in the party and event rental industry. One is to develop your business model, figure out your pricing, and go to the customer and say, here's what I'm willing to do it for. And if you're a good business person, you're going to try to pick up on a strategy for pricing, which is ideally it's based on your cost and knowing what you want to get for some profitability from it, and also the ability to weather an event like this, for example. But others are looking to grow the business and they're willing to take the chance for lower rates to get the business on the basis of pricing. I can't speak to whether one strategy is better than the other because every company is in a different point in the phase. But how you price it doesn't change from the day that you price it. From then on, if the customer says, I'll take the job, if you collect a deposit or you don't collect a deposit, that's going to be what frames that job for its profitability on the front end. The profitability, the second opportunity to make a profit is how and when you deliver it, because it really comes down to what's the least number of man hours, man dollars, fuel costs, utility costs, insurance costs that you can incur and still provide the service, have the protection from the insurance, have the drivers with the experience because they have the training so they don't get in an accident that causes it. It's all about what is my operation going to be in terms of efficiency to deliver it, because virus or no virus, these principles in making a profit apply, which is how do you control your costs. If you quote a job at $1,000 and you deliver it more efficiently, you're going to make more profit. If you deliver it less efficiently because you forgot to put the legs on the truck, which happens to everybody, not just me, right, then you're going to run back and get it, and you're going to solve those problems when the customer calls and said, yeah, we ordered this and you didn't have it in the contract and you got to do another run out. There's all kinds of reasons why we incur extra costs. This is a good time to step back and say, how do we run our business? Because while you may or may not be able to make it back in the next 30 days, all the changes in concept of how you run your business have everything to do with how much profit you'll make on jobs in the future, because you're not going to be able to reprice those jobs. You can only deliver them more efficiently. Maybe it's looking at the way you configure your trucks. Maybe you moving toward a trailer operation instead of a cube truck operation. Everybody's got a different approach to it, but you got to come up with something that works for your demographics and your market and your driver skills and so on and so forth, so it becomes more effective. So that's where I would look to spend my time to try to yield the profit out of the rest of the year, no matter when the sales start to come back.
Right. So try to improve your business now. It may not matter that much right now, but when everything kicks back in, you're at a better position. Mm-hmm. Like you say forgetting things. A lot of people forget things. I think just one tip would be to have some sort of check sheet for everything. And when it goes down the truck, it gets checked off or maybe initialed or whatever. So you don't have to make 2 trips back. And then if you initiate that now while we're slow, while we're scared down the line, you're just going to be so much better off and not forgetting things and pulling more profit from that job.
Right. So when you're a one-man operation, so to speak, where you're doing all the planning and loading, it's probably the easiest because you're the owner or the manager and you have a vested interest and you're got your checklist and you're counting things against the checklist. But as you get just a little bit bigger, where you're running 2 or 3 trucks and you got to go out in sales calls, somebody else is loading the truck. Now you're at the mercy of, does this guy have attention to detail that's doing this job in my absence, or is this guy not? And now it gets down to what's the system that supports it. Just the very point you make, if there's a packing list of sorts or a checklist, whether it's a generic list you make for every time you put up or take out a 30 wide frame or a pole tent, or it's a specific list made to that particular contract that you're delivering, it's got to be systematic. And then the person that's doing the pulling has to go down point to point to point to make sure everything is there, check the counts. The more people you have involved in the load, the less accurate the load's going to be, unless the load master, which is what we'd call it in a bigger company, is controlling the movements of each of these guys and saying, I want you to do this next, and they're calling out their numbers twice. And honestly, when you get to the larger companies, it gets really involved, because you really need 2 signatures on every line item to make sure two people counted it to get it accurately, because you're doing larger scale things where you may be doing a festival where you're going to load 40, 50 red poles. I mean, that's just something where it's very easy to get off on that, and you don't just put in extras because you don't know where you left off to do that. So right. Those are all good systems. Right. Loading is really a key, no question about it.
Yeah, and that system, if you can get it down now, will help you take more profit later and hopefully, balance out what you're losing right now.
Yep. Yep.
All right. So, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask what you kind of feel about this situation, if you feel it will bounce back soon.
I think that you're going to find some events are going to go on no matter what within families and local small groups. I think you're going to find some people totally respect the government influence, and they're going to tend to hunker down and not hold the events. But you have other people that kind of feel like they're exempt because they know where the family's been. And it's going to be a blend of things that come back in the next 30 days and more in the next 60 days. I will say, when they force the schools closed and they force and they force the churches or choose to be closed and things like that, then it does it weighs on your psyche. Okay, is it appropriate for us to be doing it? But I would think that if we start to see the occurrence of new, the government will be tracking the number of new occurrences listed week by week by week. I mean, all their really goal is right now it's going up at a fairly steep level. They're trying to get it leveled, because as soon as they can get it leveled, then it'll start to go down. And this stopping the movement of people between areas, particularly in large crowds, is all really geared to do that. We got a way too late start, in my opinion.
Right.
And as a result, the problem got worse. Had we gotten an earlier start, we might have been close to the time where it's starting to come back, and it's already started to level. But when we left the gateways open to the country, and the ships were coming and going without any kind of sense of discipline, I mean, I remember I was watching a video news report yesterday of people getting on, and I think it was Galveston, Texas, onto a Carnival cruise line to go to Mexico to have vacation, and that was just literally yesterday. So what's that tell you? There's still some disregard for the process by which the virus spreads when that goes on, and that has the potential to have a ripple effect. I won't be surprised to see those cruise lines shut down within the next 5 days. For as many things as shut down in the last 5 days, that would be small, in my opinion.
Right. I believe yesterday one cruise line said they were shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
And you said yesterday to me, which is interesting because you've been through both of them. After 9/11 and after the financial crisis, I got a cat right here, that America recovers mentally very quickly. Not that we forget that things happened or anything, but our psyche recovers and we're on moving. So after this levels out and starts to go down, I don't see a lasting effect of people being worried about having parties. They're just going to recover. Sure, people are going to clean their hands more and maybe be more conscious of how close they are to people, but they're not going to be as scared as they are right now, and that's going to taper off.
So yeah, a good example of that is at 9/11 in New York, and in just that one day, did we lose 1,000 people or 2,000 people or 3,000 people? The typical person has no clue. Matter of fact, they're just not thinking about it anymore. They don't think about the exposure, but it was real. Just imagine how fast you'll forget about the virus, and it's not because we don't care about what happened in 9/11. It's that there's so much going on in terms of you see visually and via the computers and so on, that you get pulled away from the things that you might have said were important that day, and suddenly they're just not in your mind frame at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
As a nation and everything, we start to just move on and conduct business as normal, and everyone goes out to the bars and to the movies, and everything gets better, and it just kind of fades away. So that's going to happen with this.
So one of the things that's going to happen with respect to driving your costs down is that we're fortunate that the oil, the competition now between Saudi Arabia and Russia, which is two of the three players, the U.S. being the third one on the oil, has plummeted the crude oil prices down to, it was 33, went to 30, I think. We're going to see the trucking costs go way down. So that's going to be a lower cost to deliver our product. Are we going to turn around and reduce our prices because the trucking went down? Probably not, right? So we've got an advantage there that's come up. It's all interesting because while those two countries are competing on the oil prices, it's actually going to put U.S. oil producing companies that do the shale and so on. It's going to put those companies potentially out of business because we are the high-priced oil of those three vendors. So it will probably start to become more cost-effective to bring oil in on a tanker to the U.S. than it will be to take it out of the ground in the U.S. So we'll start exporting our money out to get oil. Maybe we won't. Maybe Trump will step in and say we're going to force people to use U.S. oil. That'll be interesting. But whatever happens, the cost of oil and the cost of fuel is going to go down, and that's a huge benefit to us. So that's one place where we're going to get some gain. The next one is for every time you're planning jobs, it's the critical nature of planning your trucks and your crews to move to jobs is a huge way to save money. And it starts with, what am I routing set up? If you look at a rental company and they have jobs going out maybe a 50-mile radius, and they have weddings set up through a weekend, those weddings potentially could be set up on a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. What do you do to keep your wedding setup times flexible so that the customer will understand that you have the discretion to do the setup on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday based on all the other things? So now if let's say you're in Adams Market and you're in Utica, and you have an opportunity to do a job down in Binghamton, and you have another opportunity to do one down halfway to Binghamton, and they occur on a Wednesday and a Thursday, wouldn't you be better to bring those onto the same truck and reroute it and get it all onto the same day, and then you do your trip to the north, up to Syracuse or upstate, and trying to consolidate runs? The more you sell people on the fact that we'll get your product delivered within this certain window, and give yourself the freedom to set it up a day or two early, the easier it's going to be for you to deliver at a lower cost. Now, it also plays to your advantage with weather, because who knows what the weather is going to be a month from now when you have to set up a 30-wide or 40-wide frame and you've got thunderstorms scheduled through on a Thursday. Well, you're going to want to move that to either Wednesday or Friday. That gave you the freedom to do it because you set that precedent by telling the customer that's how the tent rental industry does business. I think when you're young and new in the business, your orientation is ask the customer when they want it delivered, and they tell you, and you lock that date in, and you don't even realize that the customer is willing to flex to the extent that you're willing to say this is a condition of doing business. They're not making a decision to use you because of which day of the week you're going to deliver it. They're making a decision to use you because they perceive a value and they've agreed to a price. So you don't have to pin down the timing with most customers. Now, there are some that you do. I mean, there's venues that are very strict and restrictive in what they do, and obviously we learn who those are, but sometimes we fire the customer because those aren't the ones we want to have. It just depends on what your operation is.
I like how you said fire the customer.
Yeah, well, it's, as you get bigger, you're going to want to fire the customer when it's somebody who doesn't speak to your values. There's particularly can be a problem with nonprofits where their expectations are to get it for free on their first call, and every other expectation is to do the best they can for the people they work for. And within that, nonprofits can become very unreasonable. Seems irrational, but really they're doing their job.
Yeah, they're doing their job.
But there's nonprofits that are worth firing. There's no question about it.
Right. I fire some venues where they want you in that morning and out that night, and just never worth it. So I fired some of those.
Yep.
But
I totally get that. So another area where you can start to look at, we talked about routing efficiency, would be the quality of the loads. Now, when you're doing, say, a $3,000-$4,000 job that fits on one truck or two trucks, it's all about what is the stage in the process when you first get there. Well, when you first get there, You show up with 5 people and you got 2 trucks, and the customer says, we're delayed because I got to mow the grass, or we're not sure, the owner's not there. Well, why not send out 1 truck with a crew that's going to measure and mark and maybe do some staking? And when they arrive and the customer says, oh, we're delayed, we've got to mow the lawn, you call back to the other one and say, hold up there. You can do some stuff around the shop before we get there. They've delayed us. This can be more chronic with commercial properties and venues. Everybody wants to mow the lawn at the last possible minute. Yeah. And if it rained the night before, they're raining it. They're doing it. And what could be worse for a tent rental company than to have to put up a brand new tent on freshly cut grass in the morning dew in May, right?
Yeah, even though you got a tarp, you're still getting grass.
Yeah. So, the idea is to look for ways to set the loads up so 1 truck can arrive and do the work. The other thing is, we always tried to, on the biggest jobs, we'd have, say, 3 trucks going in total with, heavy tenting, stage, flooring, things like that. And the last truck would be coming in with dishes, and somewhere in between with tables and chairs. We tried to stagger the last truck arriving so that we would have the option to call them back and say, hey, we got a problem. We got a crown out here that's the wrong crown. It won't fit. Can you have them bring it out when they bring that last truck? Now that truck leaves early to bring that out because it's 30 miles away, 40 minutes away. Right. It's just another way of trying to affect efficiency. And who's to say you didn't take a call from a customer at 9 in the morning who said, could you drop off some linens, and it's on the way, and now you've got 2 stops anyway for that job. This is somewhat flexibility now. Depends on the size of the operation again. Yeah,
that's good. If it's a smaller operation and you've got 10 graduations going on that you're delivering that day, efficiency comes in where you're going to actually load the truck. You're not going to put all your tables in the back and then all your chairs in the middle and all your tents up front, because you got 10 jobs to do. You're going to have to be moving things all the time. So you're going to kind of load according to the job backwards. Your last job you're going to put in the back of the truck and load it forward to your first job. So you can just open that door, get out what you need for that first job, and not have to be spending 10 minutes each job moving things around. So that makes you more efficient. Basically what we're saying is you can't control too much currently. You can't control who cancels and whatever. You can try to get them to reschedule. But what you can control is how you operate your business during this period. And if you can get that down, then you can, moving forward, just be more profitable altogether, not just during this period.
So great time to sit your tent lead down and say, help me develop my checklist for the 20 wides and the 30 wides, including down to the sledgehammer and the drop cloths and the pin bucket. And it's all a process. Anything that you can turn a process around and go off a piece of paper, I mean, that's time well spent. It's either that or we don't have the business and we lay them off. Well, if we lay them off, there's ramifications of that, because they may feel, well, I'm going to go out and try to find something else. I don't think that's so much the risk right now, because I'm pretty sure that anywhere you go, you're not going to get a job opportunity, because everybody's on hold, not just our. And now, I guess if you have somebody that could roll over to the nursing or the hospital operation or nursing home, well, that's an area where there's huge demand right now, not only because people are sick, but because they just have been an underserved industry for a while now. But you're going to see a change with unemployment over the. I mean, that's probably one of the things we do have to look forward to, is that unemployment has been ridiculously low for 3 solid years, giving us nothing to pick from. Guys without driver's licenses, people that have a history that's not worthy of hiring, but we need raw labor, so we end up getting it, and then we depend on the culture and the spirit of the rest of the crew to bring these guys in play. And if they work, they stay for more than a day, and if they don't, okay, we find some more. But I think you're going to find unemployment's going to pop up fairly quickly, and it's going to stay up a while. And it's not going to stay up because of the virus. It's going to stay up because the residual impact of us not having imports from China for sub-assembly for production and distribution and retailing is going to have an impact on the warehouses. And suddenly all these warehouses that have 30, 40 people are going to be backing down to perhaps a half or 2/3 of that, and those people become available. You're not going to have as much trouble filling jobs as it starts to ramp up again. Now, the challenge is that you want to keep the skill now. So what do you do to keep it? And of course, you have two choices there. One is, okay, we're going to do a legitimate layoff, and you can draw unemployment, and then you have as much as you can for unemployment. Or we say we're going to continue to give you hours. We're going to cut it back to a given number of hours, and that's because the owner has the ability to weather it financially. It really depends on where you are in your cycle, whether you fall in one or the other category. But you do have to control your costs right now.
Right.
There's no question about it.
Yeah. My friend just laid off all his employees except for 7 of them, but he's probably going to bring them back on because he's going to be getting lots of jobs for, setting up frame tents for hospitals and Walmart stations and whatever. So there's that. Some of the larger companies that have a lot of frame tents are going to be trying to make those sales calls to hospitals and Walmart and CVS and places where they're going to be putting up tents for testing stations. So hopefully a lot of those companies can get those jobs. I know I'm trying for a few. Actually, after this, I'm going to be calling some of the local hospitals and see who I can get. Yep.
No, that's definitely time well spent. No question about it. Right. So we talked about systems. Let's see. I was watching the internet today, and I came across a posting from somebody just like you and me, a guy named Aaron Pope, which is Pope Tents and Events down in Alabama. And he posted on Facebook this morning and got rave reviews. By that I mean lots of clicks, likes, and he wrote, "Good morning, everyone. I can't speak for everyone else, but I'm gonna do what I do every day. Go to work, say a little prayer, and do the best I can. I'm gonna call customers. I'm gonna make sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to, and we're gonna stay positive. We're gonna show employees and customers that we're there for them as well. We also need to support each other and friends and offer words of encouragement. I hope and pray that everyone has a successful season and that this will be over quickly. Thanks and God bless." So I read that, and I had seen it 16 minutes in, and it already had 8 likes, at that point. And I'm like, that's interesting. And some of the people that were liking were some of the naysayers that have been rather, very, very negative, very, not negative, fearful, and right. Which, we all are. And what it really represented is that you got to still stay in the game and do what we need to do, because it's only a blip in the radar. I mean, if you think about it, you just went through 3 months of no business in January, February, March, for the sake of it, maybe December. Now we're going to see another 2 months. Does that make or break the company? Well, it may for some that aren't well financed and they don't have a cushion. But miracles can be done if you look hard enough and try to find opportunities to solve that. But if you look back on this and you're still in the business a year from now and 2 years from now, you will totally forget this last week and this week. It's just not even going to be something you think about. Right. It'll give you perspective on how to approach it in the future, but it's not going to alter the trajectory of companies that are already on a success path. It's just going to be a blip, and is that much different than having a season like 2 years ago in the Northeast, where every takedown every day was rain, and if you didn't have tent hanging capabilities, you found yourself putting up mildewed tents when you didn't want to because you were just doing the best you could? That was probably just as devastating, because now it was affecting quality. It's affecting the amount of time and hours that you spent. It translated into much higher costs to deliver and pick up the products. If it's not one thing, it's another. But you have these what I call bingo deals that come along once in a while too, where you get these back-to-back rentals. You get off season rentals. Off season for us was always July and the first half of August. Anything we booked for July and August was great because we went so hard in through May and June, and then we literally our work level cut back to less than half. So we were always happy to have anything.
Right.
So you try to make your money where you can when you can, and keep optimistic.
Right. That's a very good post from him. It's it's scary right now, and it's going to continue to be scary for a little while, but you got to just remember, go in every day, do the things you got to do, take this opportunity to come up with new systems to be more efficient. Maybe take this opportunity, you have a great opportunity to clean everything now, and fix everything. You've got a great opportunity to come up with new systems, great opportunity to, just reorganize everything to be more successful and evaluate everything. So don't think of this as the end of the world, because it's going to be a blip. We'll get over it and come up with the systems and practices right now to make yourself not just successful through this, but through the rest of your entire career.
I did have one friend up in Massachusetts who he decided to close for 2 weeks. Now, what's closed for 2 weeks mean for him? It's a medium-sized operation. Closed for 2 weeks probably really means, okay, we're going to send everybody home. They can draw unemployment, but we're going to take the phones home, and we're going to take every phone call. And if we do happen to get something that turns and matures, we will. I was talking to a company I used to own, the general manager there, and he had no activity. They weren't open Saturdays yet, but I sent him a note saying, so you're working today? And he says, no, but I've been on the phone all day. Well, in his case, he took the phones and transferred them on Saturday. Well, it made me think back to the days when I first started Taylor Rental, which is what I'd started with. And we always used to take the phones home, and we would answer it all the way up till the time we would go to bed.
Right.
And we would answer it on Saturdays and Sundays because you never knew what kind of opportunity that was going to yield. That's a change in a business strategy over what we are now as a big company. We typically, we're not going to be open Saturdays. We're not even taking the calls firsthand. Doesn't mean that you're not missing opportunities. It means that you've got your system and your process, which you're trying to optimize so that you have the people in place when they need it. Well, if the calls aren't going to be in very often, and the few calls that come in, it makes your day happy when you get a call at 7 o'clock at night on a Monday. That's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Forward those phones to your cell phone. And yeah, your wife might be a little mad if you get a phone call at 9 o'clock on Saturday night, but right now you got to get those opportunities.
And she understands the dilemma. There's no question about it.
Yeah,
no,
definitely.
Unless she's the breadwinner.
Sometimes.
That's true.
Some years my wife brings home more money than me. But that was definitely a good place to stop. I appreciate the conversation, and we're going to have you back on in a few more days to talk about sales, getting out and making sales, because that is not only important currently, but it's important, anytime. And you took me out to dinner not long ago and talked not excessively, that sounds bad. You talked a lot.
It might have been for me.
No, it's all right. You talked a lot about sales and how that's important for a company to be selling instead of just being order takers. So a few days from now, we'll jump back on and do that.
Look forward to that.
And then I was kind of thinking maybe a few more days after that, jumping on live and taking people's questions, because there's a lot of people scared, and you've had the experience and can tell them more than I can tell them. So maybe we'll do that too. You'd be happy to do it. All right. Sounds good. All right. I'm going to put Scott's contact info down in the description. And if you ever need a tent ox, you can call him. Or if you just are scared and just want a quick little bit of advice, he'll be more than happy to help you as well. Everyone, thanks for watching. Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Bye.